The Forest Discovery Trail, also called the Discovery Trail, is a 1.4-mile interpretive loop just off the Kancamagus Highway near Lincoln Woods. It's a wheelchair-accessible, gentle walk through mixed spruce, fir, and hardwood forest. The trails traverse what was historically part of the East Branch and Lincoln Railroad, a standard gauge logging railroad built in the 1890s. It operated until 1948 and served as the spine of massive logging operations in the East Branch and Kancamagus watersheds. After the railroad's closure in 1948, willow growth reclaimed the land. By the 1980s and 90s, segments were repurposed as recreational trails supported by the U.S. Forest Service, becoming part of the White Mountain National Forest. The trail serves as an unmatched chance to see forest management practices in action, with signs explaining everything from natural disturbance to wildlife habitat. You literally walk along the old railroad bed that once ferried logs and frozen ice. The trails, with their information boards, reflects the transformation of the region from intensive logging to preservation and public enjoyment. So far, we've only been on the trail now for a few minutes, but the trail does appear to be 6 feet wide, pretty much all gravel. Wouldn't be an issue with anybody with mobility issues. Wheelchairs or motorized type device would be able to get over this. Although up ahead, it does appear to narrow slightly, and the trail does seem to get a little rocky. We do have one blowdown here, but for the most part the trail appears to be in pretty good shape. So as you can see by the trail, there is some elevation gain, but it's not bad at all. So in summary, the Forest Discovery Trail isn't just a scenic stroll. It's a great history lesson of the White Mountains' transformation from the railroad-driven logging era to a living classroom in the forest. The East Branch and Lincoln Railroad ran from 1893 to 1948. The Forest Discovery Trail follows part of the historic railbed of the East Branch and Lincoln Railroad, built in the 1890s to haul timber from the East Branch watershed to mills in Lincoln. The railroad covered logging camps 7 and 8 and even facilitated ice harvesting from ice ponds at Camp 7 for early refrigeration. This logging firm came to dominate Lincoln economy in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. By 1892, they owned massive tracts of virgin timber, built a steam sawmill, workers' housing, stores, and the logging railway, effectively creating a company town. The operations echoed troubling practices of the era, clearing huge tracts. In Zeeling Valley, they stripped 10,000 acres, leaving ecological harm like acidified streams and sawdust-covered slopes. Like other operations across the White Mountains, this one was no different. It triggered fires and environmental degradation, prompting early conservation alerts. The last train ran in 1948, retiring the East Branch and Lincoln Railroad. Between the late 1940s and 1980s, the old rail alignment was known as the Wilderness Trail, stretching from Kancamagus Highway towards the Pemigewasset Wilderness. In 1984, that wilderness was officially designated, and by 1989, the U.S. Forest Service renamed the 2.9-mile segment from the highway Lincoln Woods Trail. By the 1980s and 1990s, the Forest Discovery Trail was installed on this gentle grade to highlight sustainable forest management. It features 10 interpretive panels explaining topics like natural disturbance, wetland ecology, and timber management. By then, it was New England's longest-standing logging railroad. The path is still about 4, maybe 5 feet wide, although the walking area right now is about 1.5 feet wide. Still very doable by hikers of all levels and mobility. Probably at this point, if they were using some sort of a motorized device or a wheelchair or something along that line, they'd need a little assistance getting through here, but it's doable. So I'd say if you're one that uses hiking poles or walking sticks, this particular hike to this point, you could probably leave them in the car. You probably would not need them. Of course, it is always good to have them as another point of contact to the ground for balance, but you could get away without them here. And of course, if you see me all of a sudden tumble down with the camera, then you'd know that I probably should have been using the walking sticks. But right now, things are pretty good. Another little bench here where you could stop and take a break. Looks like that one's split over time. Pretty amazing how a chunk of rock like that can split as clean as it's split. I'm not seeing any drill marks that look like it was split man-made, but I don't know. It's interesting. And for you folks that like to count your steps when we get done with the hike, at the end of this video, I will have how many steps is involved in this hike. Coming up on our first little wooden bridge, so we keep our feet dry going across the river. And on this end of the trail we run into another loop. This one will loop around, bring us back over that covered bridge as we work our way back out towards the parking lot. Interesting tree growing around a big chunk of rock. We've looped around, we're coming back up on the nice wooden bridge over the river, and then we will follow the trail off to our left, which will take us back to the parking lot. Much to my surprise, I figured today the trailhead would be very busy, but we only saw one car in the parking lot when we got here, and we came across a small family of 2 children. Other than that, we've had the trail all to ourselves. Sometimes during the peak season, getting on some of these trails can be difficult at best as far as finding a parking spot in the parking lot at the trailhead. They sometimes become very popular with vacationers and other hikers. My recommendation would be arriving early or arriving later in the afternoon. We arrived at the trailhead probably about 8:30, and like I said, there was only one other car in the parking lot. Another huge part of the granite state coming up in front of us here. Guess that pretty much stays where it lands. Nobody's going to move that. Water and ice has split the top part of this rock off. Maybe someday it'll slide off and land on the ground. And as you can probably hear, we're pretty close to the parking lot. You can hear traffic on the Kancamagus Highway flying by. Like I said, I'd tell you how many steps this hike was. This hike was 3,396 steps. It's approximately 1.5 miles. It is a loop, actually a couple of loops on it. It's a trail that is great for hikers of all levels. Anybody that has mobility issues, they could do these trails, although it would be recommended that they had somebody with them, depending on what type of mobility device they use. If they're using a wheelchair or some sort of a motorized scooter type thing, they would need to have somebody assist them in a few spots where there are some slight washouts. When I say slight, they're very small washouts. There's one area where there was a blowdown. There was a tree across the trail they may need assistance getting around that, but it is doable. You can get around it. But this is a great trail for a family. I would give it on a scale of 1 to 5. I'd probably give this about 4.5 stars, only because of the small washouts and the tree that's going across the trail in one spot. Like I said, you can get around those obstacles with very little difficulty. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, could you consider liking, subscribing, and commenting?